everybody. This is Colin G. Murphy, and welcome to show 57 of Colin Podcasting about real estate. So, the eagle eyed among you might notice that I'm in a different location now. I am podcasting from a new office in Madrid, Spain. So, this was recorded back in July 2021. I moved to Madrid a couple of weeks ago, and I'm officially running my real estate business from here. It's been a big move. It's not easy moving overseas with kids, and a lot of planning went into it on the family side. A lot of planning went into it on the business side as well. A ton of stuff to do with companies being U.S. resident versus non-U.S. resident, setting up things so that people can sign documents on my behalf for buying, selling, mortgaging real estate, all sorts of systems and processes to put in place so people can be my eyes and ears on the ground when I'm not there, which realistically I'm not going to be very often. But so far it's working out great. I've been here in Spain for 3 weeks, and I've already sold 3 houses and bought 3 houses without signing a thing, and without seeing some of the houses that I've bought. So things are so far early days, but touch wood, it's going great. I'm loving my new office. You're kind of seeing the back of it now. It's a big office with a load of space, literally across the street from my house. It's got windows on, like 8 windows surrounding me. I've got beautiful views of gardens outside, and it's literally a 50-second walking commute from my house, so can't get much better than that. So I'm enjoying the change of scenery. I'd much rather spend July and August in Spain than Florida. Florida is wonderful for a lot of the year, but July and August are 2 of the months where it's not the most pleasant place to be, with the humidity and the afternoon rain. So yeah, big changes for the Murphy family. But back to the podcast. I've released several podcasts in the last couple of weeks that I recorded before I left. This is the first one I've recorded from the new base in Spain, and I probably mentioned this in previous podcasts that I was going to do it, but I'm officially here. And today I had the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Chris Craddock, who's real estate multimillionaire. He's got a ton of real estate businesses, including a retail business which sold over $160 million worth of real estate last year, over 500 transactions. He's also a real estate investor, a wholesaler, hard money lender. He's literally got his hands in every type of real estate pot you can think of. Very prolific guy, all-around entrepreneur, runs a bunch of successful businesses. So there's a lot of stuff that we were able to talk about in a pretty wide-ranging conversation, including obviously his challenges and lessons learned as a young real estate entrepreneur, his views on realtor investor partnerships. He's got some great advice for investors looking to work with realtors and realtors looking to work with investors. Talk about monetizing unused real estate leads, which is very interesting. Creating new revenue streams in general without having to spend a lot of money in marketing, which is very important for anybody on a budget or anybody that doesn't like spending tons of money up front. Just generally how he builds and manages multiple real estate businesses, what the key things to do are, his attitude to real estate investment, the types of investments he does, his attitudes to financing and refinancing them, how he balances a busy work and family life, and more. So great conversation. Very energetic guy, and I enjoy speaking with him. So let's head on over and see what Chris has to say.
Welcome to the show, Chris. How you doing?
Hey, brother. Thanks so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be here with you, bro.
No, it's my pleasure. So listen, before we dig into your epic real estate journey, Chris, can you tell us a bit about where you grew up and if you came from an entrepreneurial family?
Yeah, I was in the DC area where I grew up, and my dad's side of the family, my grandfather was very blue collar. Didn't even have a high school degree, was a road worker, but bought real estate whenever he could, and ended up dying a very wealthy man. And my mom's side of the family, very white collar, and they all owned real estate as well. So real estate was kind of in the blood, but definitely not, it was always a side thing. It was never the thing. So, that was kind of the deal there. But yeah, man, that's pretty much it. I was in ministry for a long time, making very little money, and I knew I needed to make money, and I saw that real estate was a path to do that when I
Hmm.
started having more kids, and so I jumped into real estate, and it's been great ever since.
That's fantastic. So what were your early days in real estate like? What do you remember your first couple of deals? Was it flipping? Was it just get a realtor's license and start getting commissions? How did you start out?
Yeah, so it was definitely flipping. It was in the early 2000s. I was making $20,000 a year on Young Life staff, and I knew I needed to make some money because my wife got pregnant. And I'm like, okay, I gotta support a family now. Even though I love
Yep.
Young Life and I love everything that it meant to me, I got to support a family as well. And so I went to the library, checked out every book they had on investing, and um, I always say imperfect action trumps perfect inaction, right? And so I just read all the books I could, and then went out knocking on doors like within a week of people that were distressed, and ended up making 12 times what I made in a year by buying properties. Back in the early 2000s, you could buy a fix and flip property for 5% down, get a bank loan for 5% down.
Wow.
Obviously, that doesn't happen anymore, but I was able to do that, like cobble together the money to be able to do a couple deals there. And like I said, made 12 times what I made in a year in about 4 months. So it was great.
Wow. So you really hit the ground running there. Do you recall any challenges or successes from those early days? Sounds like it's successes straight away. Was it all plain sailing, or was there a few rocky moments there in the first year?
Oh, bro, there's always challenges to everything. Nothing's easy. Everybody tells their stories, and it sounds so easy. And then you actually dig in and you get under the hood and you realize, the engine block
Hmm.
was rusted out, but it still looks like a sports car on the outside, right? Um, no, it's it was just difficult. Like what I did was, I'll tell you, I think that to win in any sort of business like that, it's activity and skill. I just talked to a lot of people, and I had a very low level skill. And so when I found a deal, I didn't know what to do with it. So I found a real estate agent and was like, hey, if I gave you half of this deal, would you write up like I didn't even know how to write up a contract. Like I had no
Right.
idea. And so I just called a real estate agent friend of mine and just said, hey, I think this is where I'm buying this way under market. Would you split the deal with me and you just do the paperwork for it? And that was kind of the way I did the first handful of deals, just
Hmm.
because I didn't know what I was doing, right? And
Fair enough.
I know so many people are so worried about giving away money, but at the end of the day, I mean, think about doctors, right? They go through residency. You work to learn so that you can work to earn,
Hmm.
and so I think that's really really important to just say, hey, bring somebody along that knows what they're doing, and make sure I don't get myself in trouble.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, nowadays your experience, you're not going to give someone half the money to do paperwork because it's not that complicated to do the paperwork. But when you're starting out, there's a lot of pitfalls. There's a lot of ways you can lose money. The ways people can take advantage of you. That someone who knows their way around the paperwork can spot. So that was a smart move. The main thing is to get started, get a few deals under your belt, and then you figure out the next rung on the ladder after that.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, like, I personally made a fortune. Like I said, 12 times what I made in a year. Um, so that was just crazy. Then I could do whatever I wanted as far as the financial piece goes. I wish at the time I had no idea about real estate coaching and mentorship and masterminds
Hmm.
and all the other stuff. I wish I could go back and tell 20 something year old Chris to to go do that, right? But
Sure.
but yeah, I mean that was kind of the deal.
All right. So what did you do after that? You had a business doing some fix and flips that were earning you 10, 12 times what you were getting with your ministry salary. Did you just continue to scale that? Did you branch out into other sidelines in real estate? How did the mid 2000s pan out?
Yeah, I love doing ministry stuff, and there were just a couple things that kind of made me kind of back away from the fix and flip stuff for a while. And so I just continued doing ministry stuff, stopped doing as much in the real estate side
Hmm.
because frankly, I paid for a number of years of my life, and I could do it without, being
Nice.
poor.
Okay.
Like,
Hmm.
so that was a big thing there. And then I guess in the early, like around 2011, I have 6 kids now. I've got a lot of kids. Anybody with a lot of kids understands like you know, your money just disappears fast if you have a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
And so I was doing all these side jobs, side gigs, just things to try to earn money. And uh, what I realized, I'm like, why am I working so hard here when you can make so much more money in real estate? So I got back in and I started flipping some houses again the way I used to. But at this point, the market had crashed. So there were lots of short sales available. So
Yeah.
it was a similar thing. I didn't know anything about short sales. I figured it out and then started flipping some short sales. But the bank kind of changed the algorithms about a year into me starting to flip short sales where they weren't giving these massive discounts anymore. And so
Hmm.
um, I ended up getting my real estate license because they were going to pay a commission. So just to flip my own short
Yep.
sale. And, I'd also gone back to school. I'd gotten a doctorate in leadership. And so during that time, somebody gave me Gary Keller's book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, about building out $1 million net profit real estate team. And it just made a lot of sense to me. And so I started building that out. I guess it was December 2014.
Hmm.
And that started growing really fast. And within about 3 years into it, I was hitting a little bit of a plateau. And I realized I came from the investor world. And agents and investors live on these two different islands and they
Yeah.
rarely cross paths. And I was like,
Hmm.
man, there is so much money to be made for investors and there's so much money to be made for agents if these two worlds can just come together. And so I went to some investors that were doing a lot of business and I just asked them if they would let me convert their retail leads, their leads that weren't going that they weren't going to fix and flip or wholesale into dollars through listings. And they said, oh no, we've tried it. And almost everybody has tried it. If you bring in a lot of leads, people have tried it.
Hmm.
But I was like, let me crack this code because there is a code here. These people have raised their hand and said, hey, I want to sell. And there's money to be made. Somebody's going to make money, another investor or an agent. Let's make it us. And so eventually they gave me a bunch of leads that were like old dead leads. Little did I know they were like 5-year-old leads because I just kept calling them and saying, hey, let's do this. Let's do this. And they wanted to get me off their back. But I closed a bunch of them. And then we started building this thing out together. And yeah, I mean, we
Okay, can
routinely.
we rewind a little there? Can you just tell me again what these investors what were they doing and what kind of leads were these that they had cast aside? Can you just rewind a little bit and tell us again slowly how recycle those old leads and made money?
Yeah. So think about this. I know you do fix and flipping, right? So if
Hmm.
let's say you send out, let's just say direct mail. I don't know your main marketing
Sure.
avenue, but let's say you send out a bunch of direct mail. You get 20 people that call into your company that say, hey, I want to sell my house. Of the 20 people, you're going to probably see maybe 16 of them want like within 5% of retail, right? And
Yep.
then maybe 4 of them are willing to sell somewhere between 65 and 75 cents on the dollar. And then maybe
Hmm.
you close like 1 of the 20, right? Like that tends to
Yep.
be the numbers that we see nationwide, right?
Pretty much.
Well,
Hmm.
so that means 20 people, 19 people are going to sell their house or ready to sell their house with somebody, whether it's another investor that pays a lot more money or whether it's an agent that lists the house. 19 of those 20 people that called into your company that are in your funnel that you have paid to bring in front of you are
Hmm.
going to sell. And 19 other people are going to make money on that. And you're only going to make money on one. So my whole
Hmm.
thing is, how do you deal with all of the other 19 that have raised their hand and said, I'm ready to sell and I'm ready to sell at a discount? And that's kind of what we learned. And that's what we work to crack the code on is how to monetize those leads that aren't being monetized now.
Wow. Okay. So you're able to help those people sell their house, not to the original investor who generated the lead because they want 90 to 100% of market value, but you were able to go and represent them as their list agent and then share a little piece of that with the people who gave you the lead.
Absolutely. And that's the whole thing is if you can figure out um how to do it, because if you say to everybody, hey, would you like to talk to an agent, they're going to say my brother's uncle's an agent, right? There's more agents than there are active listings right now. They don't want to talk to. So
Yeah.
it's all about how to form the right partnership and how to script it out and how to dialogue with these folks so that they don't say, I don't want to talk to you.
Wow, that's a great idea. So I mean, let's put, so there's I agree. A lot of investors are just dealing with mom and pops, and they're good at the empathy and the emotions and showing them lots of houses and picking the one that meets their exact criteria. But there's this huge other market that's the investors buying houses as well, which is nowhere near as big as mom and pops, but there's a ton of repeat business in it. And that's great for realtors to get that repeat business. So what kind of tips do you have for those people to get together a little bit more often? Because often it's like chalk and cheese when they're trying to talk to each other.
Yeah, no. That's 100% the case. So what I would just say is this, um, if they realize, there's this what's in it for me, with them that you put on people's foreheads, and investors, they want to make more money, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Tony Robbins used to talk about this a lot. Have you heard about the sawdust with the sawmill story at all?
No, no.
Man, it's so crazy. So these sawmills were they were milling wood and just barely profitable, right? But they were working so hard, milling the wood, right? And it reminds me of a lot of investors. I'll tell you, I'm friends with a lot of investors nationwide. I've done a lot of coaching with investors nationwide. I've helped a lot of people. And it's crazy because there's so much money to be made in real estate, but a lot of times investors are just eking by, right? They're just getting
Yes.
by. Well, what Tony talks about is these sawmills that were doing that. And then all of a sudden somebody got the idea. They're like, hey, what if I were to take the byproduct, the stuff that I've just been throwing away as trash, and monetize it? So they took sawdust and they started selling it for fuel for fires. They started compressing it as particle board. They started, just so many different uses for sawdust. And it turned these businesses that were somewhat profitable into into massively profitable businesses. And so I believe that this thing is that's absolutely the case for investors, where most
Mm.
investors, they're they're getting by, they're making money, but they're not massively profitable, but they're leaving the equivalent of the sawdust. Like they're just throwing it out as trash. It's sitting in their CRM. It's nothing's happening with it at all. And the reality is, like this one investment group that I work with, that we built this model around. Literally, we regularly send them over $60,000 a month in referral fees. That's $750,000 a year for deals
Wow.
that were just sitting dead in their CRM, right? Like they just sitting dead. I mean, just think about the average investor, and what I see for a lot of the students that I coach here and teach on this. They're making anywhere between $5,000 and $25,000 a month on this stuff. And imagine if you just get a mild ROI on that. Like if you brought in $15,000 a month and just paid $15,000 a month in more marketing, or paid for your marketing, how does that change profitability?
Mm-hmm.
How does that help an investment group scale? You're already paying for it. You might as well close and monetize these deals.
I love that, and I love that example you gave us at the top with monetizing the leads for the motivated seller leads that 1 in 20 work. Is there another example you can give us that you've used several times with different types of investors that's a kind of a oft forgotten way to make money, or money people are leaving on the table without realizing?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, that is the number one piece that I think is just not working for people. Is
Mm-hmm.
like they're bringing in leads and they're just not monetizing them. So that's the whole deal. And
Okay.
part of it too is, um, I'll tell you, I've talked to so many investors. I'm in a bunch of masterminds with high
Mm-hmm.
level investors, like a number of folks that you see all over the internet, and like I could say names if you want me to. It doesn't really
Sure.
matter.
Don't mind.
Um, but I was just talking to one guy. I mean, he does about 45 deals a month up in Michigan, and he's in one of my masterminds. We were in an Uber together, and we were just talking. And he's like, Chris, the crazy thing to me is, he's like, I send all of my deals that are retail to an agent. He said, it's more shocking to me when I get a referral fee than when I don't. He's like, I'm sending so many deals and I almost never monetize these. And so you realize that it's not just about finding an agent and sending them. It's about, correctly scripting it, correctly dialoguing it, and also making sure that that agent, and this is part of it too, even though he's a massively high level investor, he also is a little bit insecure about getting in the agent sandbox because he doesn't know the retail business well. And so
Yeah.
he's like, I don't really want to, I don't know how to train them to do their business. And so that's the other piece, is that agents, if they come in and just try to be a regular agent, break open like their normal listing presentation, it just doesn't
Hmm.
work, because people called an investor, usually it's one of 5 reasons they called an investor. And so if agents aren't speaking to those reasons, then
Hmm.
they're never going to get the deal. The person's going to go with their uncle's brother who's a hairdresser and a real estate agent, right?
Yeah, that's it. No, you're right. If realtors approach an investor with their script that they learned through training on how to get a listing for, single family home down the road, that's not going to work on your friend in Michigan that does 40 deals a month. So what kind of script do they need to be using if they want to get these investors and get a lot of repeat business? How should they be approaching them?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things. One, you should never use the word realtor. Realtor is a terrible word to use.
Okay.
Nobody, like, I mean, literally 50% of the deals that get done would never get done. They would not even take the meeting if you said, "Hey, do you want to meet with an agent or a realtor?" Right? Like, they just wouldn't
Yeah.
take the meeting. So you got to send them anyway. You got to avoid the bait and switch piece that is they get fearful of, where they just break open their normal listing presentation. You got to realize, if you understand the 5, I'll share the 5 reasons why I've seen people call investors. Like, 1, they want to avoid agent commission. 2, they don't want people running through their house at all hours of the day. 3, they think their house is too jacked up to put on the MLS. 4, they've got to sell fast, either through job relocation or like financial crisis. Or 5, they don't want they're embarrassed, right? Think hoarder house, and they don't want their neighbors to
Yep.
see. So if you can, if the agent can have that script and dialogue and know ahead of time, know the right questions to ask ahead of time, to know which ones they care about, and be able to script and dialogue that out before they say why they don't want to work with an agent, then you can solve the problem, and then you're gold.
That's awesome. That's some good tips there. So tell what kind of businesses are you involved in now? You mentioned you went into short sales in 2011. That was 10 years ago now. We've had a tremendous real estate, bull market since then. I mean, what kind of pots have you got your hands in nowadays?
Yeah. So, I always forget some of the businesses, but I got my retail business, my fix and flip business. I do some wholesale business. Um, I've got an insurance company, a title company. My wife runs a lending company. I've got a construction company, something called Legal Shield, which I think is amazing. Every investor should look at Legal Shield, which is, you essentially have a prepaid legal. You can call and talk to an attorney, unlimited billable hours, which, if you're an investor, having an attorney on call is huge, which I don't think
Yes.
people take advantage enough. Um, what else? Do a little hard money lending. Anyway, I know I'm leaving a couple out of there, but I have a rental portfolio. So those are some of the stuff that I'm in. I'm part of EXP, so I've got, the downline piece of EXP, which is really, really
What's the
powerful.
residual income type thing from that brokerage?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just massive, because the brokerage is awesome. It very, very investor friendly. Now they actually changed to become investor friendly for my team, right? They started allowing wholesaling, so that I would come over and join the brokerage. And now, they're working to become one of the most investor friendly companies out there. So yeah, it's pretty
Wow.
awesome that works. And they incentivize people. Basically, if you recruit somebody, you get paid for their success. So it's really, really cool. So they incentivize everybody to coach your downline, coach anybody that comes in under you.
It's a nice model. They've approached me and some of my buddies about it. And yeah, it's interesting. And so how many agents do you have working for you in your retail side these days?
21.
21. That's a nice business. And how's it been? I mean, are you guys, killing it on the sales side in the last kind of 2 years or so?
Yeah, last year we did 167 million in volume, which was
Wow.
501 transactions. A lot of times people talk about their gross numbers, which I think is great. But we've strived hard to keep our net high, right? Because you can make a lot of money, but it doesn't matter what you make, it's what you keep. And
Mm-hmm.
so, we've worked hard to make sure that we're always netting and keeping over 7 figures, which we've been able to do. And so yeah, it's been fabulous.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, it's such a crazy couple of years. And was it a struggle for you guys during, the last year and a half to continue your, motivating your people and your coaching when you had to transition to doing it all virtually? How did what do you recall from those challenges?
Yeah, I mean that's one of those rough times where you're looking at it and saying, okay, now we got to be virtual. Now we've got to figure out how to, um, how we keep things going, because I always felt like, a sales team needed to meet together, be on the sales floor together.
Yeah.
And it was nutty because when we went virtual, um, we started doing really, really well. Now, one of the things that we decided though was, so we used to do 3 trainings a week. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but when you read about the Navy SEALs, right, they'll say that you never rise to the level of your aspirations. You always fall to the level of your training, right? And so we decided that we were going to up our training, a whole heck of a lot more, um, so that our agents are gonna, our sales staff, our people are going to always be just getting so much value pumped into them that they're going to be able to it's going to be clockwork, right? Like, this is what I do. This is how I do it. This is how I win.
Wow. That's fantastic. And okay, so yeah, you're busy on so many fronts. I'm curious about your investment criteria, because I can imagine a guy being so busy, it's almost easy to forget to accumulate assets yourself when you're so busy making money in so many different ways. But it doesn't sound like you've fallen into that trap. So what kind of investing have you been doing over the years? What's your portfolio looking like now?
Well, right before the show started, I just told you we just closed on this lake house. So we've had a family lake house for years. We just closed
Mm-hmm.
on this lake house. Here's my awesome view,
Yeah.
pretty pretty sweet. So we just closed on the lake house 2 weeks ago. And actually, um, I look at it now, like, while we're here, we'll live here, and it's awesome. And then when we're not here, we're just going to put it up for Airbnb. And already, I mean, literally, it's crazy. We put it up for Airbnb 3 days ago, and I think we have something like 18 or $19,000 in revenue for August in days that we're just not going to be here.
Wow.
So it's crazy. And and our monthly cost for it is like, I guess just under 6,000 a month. So yeah, it's like 3x the time, so the amount of money. So
Mm-hmm.
this is my first foray into Airbnb, but I'm really excited about it. I've had a lot of
Yeah.
buddies talk to me about it. I own a bunch of rental properties in the DC area. I mean, the average sales price for the rental properties is above 600. So,
Wow.
there's a
Nice.
lot of people with lots of doors that are lower dollar ones. For us, because my business kicks off a lot of cash,
Uh-huh.
I'm less worried about cash flow, like where
Mm-hmm.
I'm buying that has a massive cash flow, and more worried about equity, net worth growth, and equity buildup, principal pay down, which is where I'm at here. So the cap rate, which means the amount of money that comes in on top of what I'm paying out in a mortgage, is a little bit lower on my rentals. But
Mm-hmm.
every single month I'm paying, I'm paying them off in such big chunks of each of these rentals. I think I've got something like 8 or 9 rentals now, like that. And pretty much every month, like, massive chunks are being paid down of them, which is allowing my net worth to grow like crazy every month. So that's
So
that's
is
the
your strategy then to pay those mortgages off in like 10 years or something like that? These five, 3, 4, 500,000 mortgages on these 600,000 properties?
Well, I put a 15-year mortgage on most of them, and
Okay.
so they're paying down, a bunch there. But I've got 2 of them that are about to get paid off in the next three
Nice.
years,
Mm-hmm.
which is nice. I mean, one of them is one of them's about a $900,000 house, and one of them is a 650 house. And so both of those will be paid off in the next couple of years. I will probably leverage either 25 or 50% of that. I'll probably refi that out. And again, if you refi it, that money comes to you tax free versus rental income, which you're paying tax on, right? So I'll probably refi that money out and then redeploy it into other investment properties.
Yeah, that was my next question. You're just going to leave that 900,000 kind of sitting there debt free, but you're saying you put something modest, 25, 50% on it, and then deploy that somewhere else where you can get a much higher return than the interest you're paying. And in the meantime, it's still going to throw out positive cash flow, right? Because it is pretty low loan to value.
Yeah, and you know, I got a lot of friends that are like, leverage as much as you can and put the cash back out there. And I like that, and I agree with that. But I also, so that's why I'm going to still bring some of the money, so it's not dead money. But I also have like a certain amount of properties that I want to kind of keep a little bit of a moat around, so that if the world goes crazy, you know, even if rents drop, if everything else, I've got equity, and I'll have some cash flow on all of those properties, even if the world goes a little crazy. So, you know, regardless of the political, anytime you say his name, some people love you and some people hate you. But in Trump's Art of the Deal, one of the things he says is, he's like, listen, you know, give up some of the upside in order to protect against the downside. And I saw that, and I thought that was a really, really powerful statement. I read that years ago, and I've always put that in my mind is, you know, give up some of the upside in order to protect against the downside, especially, you know, if you're setting yourself up to have, you know, recurring revenue for the rest of your life, so that you can choose to work if you want, and you can choose not to work if you don't want to.
Yeah. I agree with you, and I adopt a similar strategy with 15-year mortgages that I pay down, and have other one or two that I don't have any debt on, but I'm going to put some debt on it. But I agree. I like having a moat around my properties, especially if you're in the fortunate position of having a business that generates enough cash anyway that you're not depending on it. It's maybe slightly different for people with the W-2 jobs, and they just need to get those 8 or 9 or 10, 80% loans, and then maybe refinance to get another 5 or 6 further down the line. That's another way of doing it as well. But you know, if you're lucky enough to be generating a lot of cash, you can still build a lower portfolio, giving up a little bit of the upside, but protecting yourself should things, you know, go a little crazy.
And I wasn't there originally in my career. Obviously, I was in ministry. I actually bought my first house, my first rental, when I was still in ministry. I'd cobbled together like every bit I could, and I still didn't have enough money to put down the 20% that I needed to put down, because it was before you needed to do 25%. And so I went and I just found somebody else, just like I did early on. I found my mom, who had a little bit of cash, and I was like, "Hey, Mom, you know, you want to buy a house together?" We bought a house together, and you know, and that was the first one. And I just saw it like, hey, this is going to be my retirement, and I'll try to buy one every couple of years, just cobble money together. And then, you know, as I switched over and started doing, the better I did in real estate, the more I just, you know, started buying properties. But I do believe that no matter where you are, whether, I mean, heck, 10 years ago, I was the place when I was in ministry before I jumped back into real estate. I mean, literally, I was trying to go to NIH, which was right across the river from me in Maryland. I was trying to go to NIH to sell my blood for like $300 to buy Christmas presents for my kids, because I didn't have enough money to do, right? So like, but I had still cobbled together money to buy a investment property. So I just want everybody to know, like, it's not one of these things where you're like, oh, good for you, Chris, you're making good money, so you can do this. Maybe when I make good money, I can do this. No, it was a decision I made when I didn't have much money. And, you know, I'm a Christian guy. There's a verse in the Bible that says the person that's faithful in little will be faithful in much. So if you think, oh no, I'll do that when I have a lot, that's not true. If you're faithful with your finances when you have a little, you'll learn the stuff so that you'll be faithful when you have much, which is why you see these lottery winners. People win the lottery and they lose the money within a couple of years because they haven't developed the skill set to invest that money wisely. But if you learn, even when you don't have much, how to invest wisely, when you're given more, your investments are just going to compound like tenfold.
No, that's wonderful advice. That's a rewindable segment right there. And you're right. Just, you know, waiting until you have loads of money is a terrible idea, because it's almost self-defeating. I mean, take action early, you know, gang up with friends, your mother's, whatever, just take some action early, get the education from books, and more importantly from actually doing deals, and then you're on a much faster track to real estate success if you're just waiting until you have 150,000 saved in the bank. I mean, that's an extremely slow and higher risk way of getting on the real estate business, if you ask me. So yeah, I love the way you did it, that you did it humbly at the beginning, and as you became more successful, you had that experience and you had the education, and you got bigger and bigger. So with that in mind, you've a super busy business life with God knows how many LLCs that you have to look after, but you've also got 6 kids. How do you manage to balance that? I'm busy enough with a couple of LLCs and 2 kids, and it sounds like you're 3 or 4x both of those. How do you do it?
I've got amazing business partners. I'll tell you, when I was I was part of Keller Williams, and our team got big enough that I had the pleasure of being personally mentored by Gary Keller. And one of the things Gary said was, he said, you can have as many businesses as you want, as long as each one of them has a manila folder with the business inside of it and a face of the person that's in charge of it. And that face cannot be your face. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. So as long as you get great business partners where the person in charge of that is not you, then you can you can have as many businesses as you want.
Okay. So do you take a lot of time off? Do you ever disconnect, or are you constantly plugged in because you love it so much?
I'll tell you, that's one of those things that's tough, because I love to build. I love to build things. So I get a little bit bored when I take time off. So
Right.
I do downtime. I do like to enjoy like fun stuff. I love, oh man, I love to have fun. I love to wakeboard. I love this like wake surf, all the stuff that we've been doing down here at the lake. But I love to build things. There's an old movie, Chariots of Fire. Did you ever see that movie?
Oh yeah, the guys running on the beach in slow motion.
Yeah. Bum, 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 bum. It's amazing. Well, so basically him and his sister were going to go be missionaries in China. But he had gotten into the Olympics, and his sister's like, man, we're supposed to go to China. And one of the things he said, he's like, yeah, God made me for China, but he also made me fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure. And for me, I feel like it's that same thing. When I build things, I feel like I'm doing what I was created, what I was put here on the earth to do. And I really enjoy it. But every gift is also double-edged sword, right? So every gift has its equal and opposite curse. And so the curse is sometimes I don't like to shut down. And so I see all the Instagram and all the stuff where everybody's like, hustle hard, never sleep, work as hard as you can forever. But I mean, I don't know. I really work hard, God, family, business, and it needs to be that order. And, but sometimes it's hard. I'll just admit it.
Sure.
I am very imperfect when it comes to that, but I enjoy working, but I also enjoy my family, and I enjoy having fun.
Okay. Yeah. No, amen to that. And so what do you see in the next couple of years in real estate? Final question. Do you see this boom kind of continuing? Is there any storm clouds in the horizon you think you're looking out for, you're making plans for?
Oh man, I feel like there are going to be some consequences to all the stuff that happened, printing as many dollars as they printed. There's just going to be consequences and from what happened here. So I don't know what that looks like. So I am trying to protect myself a little bit, stockpile cash. Tony Robbins says winter is coming. And so, you want to, in the winter time, that's when massive transfers of wealth happen. And we've already seen that over the last year, right? Like with the massive printing of dollars, people with hard assets like real estate, gold, silver, even cryptocurrency, although I don't know as much about crypto, they've gotten so much wealthier, and the people without that have gotten poorer because of bad government policy, in my opinion. And so I do think that there's more of that coming, and the more we can stockpile, the more we can be ready, the more we can capitalize on this. And when there's a transfer of wealth, I just want to be on the winning side.
Yeah, don't we all? No, that's nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows what's going to happen. But I agree, if you can, position yourself to have those assets and then to have that cash cushion and then leave yourself not too vulnerable to sudden shocks, you're going to be in a position to capitalize on any opportunities out there. So I appreciate all those words of wisdom and really enjoyed this conversation, Chris. How can people learn more about you or reach out to you or one of your companies?
Yeah, a couple things. So if you're interested in just looking at the REI Revive, which is monetizing your dead leads, we'd be happy to just dig into your business model and see if it's a good fit for you. Because it's not a great fit for everybody. But I think a lot of investors are leaving a lot of money on the table. Go to wholesalinginc.com/revive, REVIVE. So that would be the deal there. If you want to just connect with me, I'm on Instagram at Cradrock, CRADDROCK. I try to respond to any DMs because people were really gracious with me and did that. And then if you're a real estate agent and an investor, I've got a podcast. Again, the average podcast listener listens to 7 podcasts. So I'd love you to keep listening to this one, and I'd love to be one of your other 7. Yeah, my podcast is Uncommon Real Estate. And we work with, kind of help people be better agents, but also better investors. And so we kind of cross that hybrid model.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure I get all that on the show notes, Chris. And thanks again for your time. And let's stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Colin.
My pleasure.
There you go, folks. That was Chris Craddock on show 57 of Colin Podcasting About Real Estate. I hope you enjoyed those words of wisdom from Chris. You got to admire his energy, his get up and go, the fact that he's able to juggle literally 11 or 12 balls on the business side at once, not to mention having 6 kids. I mean, that's impressive is one word I'd use. It's definitely impressive, and fair play to him. He's obviously a constant learner, constant experimenter, loves trying out new things, loves putting people in place to implement his ideas and strategies. And there's certainly a lot that we can learn from that attitude. A lot of people don't do things because they don't think they've got the time to do it. But it's, there's a lot of people out there that would be happy to work with you that will respond to a good idea, that will respond to a good plan, a good strategy. You don't have to be doing everything yourself any more than I'm renovating a bunch of houses myself or buying a bunch of land myself. I'm only one part of the machine. I'm trying to run the machine, but there's other people doing the day-to-day and managing the key aspects. And if everybody knows their job, you can achieve fantastic things in real estate without running yourself into the ground. One of the great things about living in Spain, for example, which is 6 hours behind Florida, is that I have the whole morning to myself. I generally don't rock into the office until about 11 in the morning. So I've time to spend time with the kids. They're on their summer holidays, and I've time to go to the gym for an hour and a half every day, and it's great. And I've still, even when I get here at 11, I still have several hours of peace and quiet and planning before the phone rings or before I gotta hop into action and join calls and have meetings with people. So I get a lot done. It hasn't affected me that I'm finishing very early in the day Florida time. My team know about that. They know that they need to get me in the mornings for any important decisions, and 98% of other stuff can wait until the next day. If something important needs to be done at 8 or 9 or 10 in the evening Spanish time, I'll get on with it and I'll do it. Whether it's tying up an important deal or putting out a fire, I'll do it. But most of the time, I'm able to knock off at a reasonable time in Spain and enjoy the Spanish evenings. And so far so good. Apologies if the audio on this show isn't quite good on my side. My microphone is on the boat with the rest of my furniture on the way over here. Hopefully I'll have that back for the next show. But we traveled to Spain about a month ahead of our furniture, which had to go on a large cargo ship to go from Tampa to Miami, and then Miami to the south of Spain, and then to Italy, and then to the south of France, and then to the east of Spain, and then by train to Madrid. And it's slowly winding its way towards our house. So should be all set up with the rest of my equipment and the banner next time, but we're doing fine in the meantime. And I appreciate you tuning into the show. Always very happy to answer any of your questions. Don't forget the website, colininvestments.com, for reports, previous shows, contact information for me if you want to get on my calendar for a quick chat about your own real estate goals, or if you want to ask me any questions about my business, I will set aside time for that. But yeah, until then, I'm going to sign off. I'll be back soon with Colin Podcast 58. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. I appreciate it, and I'll be in touch soon. Bye-bye.